What's up, everybody? Jeff Sentell, DawgNation.com, coming to you from, the home office here tonight. We are live from Cox Media Group. Had some things that went late today, so I am joining you guys from all things Cox corporate headquarters. So first things first, I want to say hi. Hope everybody's doing well. Let me know where you're from. Let me know if you're also a first-timer here for things here on DawgNation Wednesday Night Live. As always, this broadcast is brought to you guys by the good people at Kroger. The click list, if you guys heard about that click list yet, you can just go, you can kind of just figure it out like you're trying to put together your ideal Georgia recruiting class. Like if you want to put the nation's number one outside linebacker, the nation's number two outside linebacker, nation's number one running back, the nation's number one quarterback, the nation's number three cornerback, nation's number 8 outside linebacker. If you wanted to put all those guys on your list for your dream recruiting class for Georgia, have at it. It's your dream recruiting class. That's kind of how the way the Kroger quick click list works. Pretty quick when you click on the Kroger click list. I don't know if I can say that 9 times fast. But anyway, those good folks at Kroger, they sponsor our broadcast every week. We have that How About Them Groceries trivia card challenge where you get a gift card of $50 to your local friendly neighborhood Kroger. That's always a really cool thing. And also, we got another show, action-packed show. I'm sure everybody wants to hear about Adam Anderson and what I think about there. I'll give those thoughts later on in the show. But as always, first things first, got some ground rules. We do like to spread this show far and wide around this great thing called Earth. So if you don't mind, how about a like? How about a sharing of your timeline if that's possible? If you know anybody on your timeline that you're friends with that cares about Georgia right now, being number 3 in the country, having a 7-0 record and getting ready to go to Gainesville, do you think they might want to hear some Wednesday night recruiting news? Might want to win a $50 gift card from Kroger. This, my friends, is the place for all that. I'm Jeff Sentell, DawgNation.com. Obviously, tomorrow, the big question for tomorrow is what's going to go on with Adam Anderson. Adam Anderson is the gentleman from Rome High School, nation's number 2 outside linebacker. If you ask me, he's kind of a 5-star walking right now. Once he gets to the Army All-American game, shows what he can do there. I think he will quickly become a 5-star. Talking about Adam, you're talking about a guy that's about 6'5", about 215. Hard for him to put on weight during the season at Rome. But he plays on one of the nation's best defensive lines. I'm calling it the best defensive line in the state by far. Rome is the defending Class 5A state champion in Georgia. Adam Anderson is doing a terrific job there, number 19. He will commit on his birthday, his 18th birthday. Adam will also commit on October the 19th, which is all kind of synergy, the way it all lines up there as well. What's up, everybody? As always, man, give me your thoughts about what's going on. You got a question? I will do my very best to get to it and everything else like that. And I know everybody's going to point out, Jeff, why are you wearing a tie for, man? It's just long story there, man. Just a long day, lots of things going on. So bear with me. I'm not usually this formal, especially at 8:15 at night. Usually have a Yeti cup by now and everything else like that. Everybody wants to know a timeline for Anderson tomorrow. I think from what I've been told and been led to believe, I think the announcement will come afternoon or evening. It won't be it's not expected to be an early morning thing or anything like that. It should come later in the day. And Adam Anderson is choosing between Georgia and Alabama. Georgia is hoping for that rare recommitment. Adam committed to Georgia back in August before his junior year. You guys might remember he decommitted, and it was kind of a dagger in the hearts of the Georgia people, I might say, because he decommitted as part of that triple play package deal to LSU on G-Day of all things. And there was a point there where Adam Anderson had decommitted, Donovan Georges had decommitted, Max Ray had decommitted, and Georgia didn't really have a commitment anymore for the class of 2018. They were bare, but punter Jake Camarda out of Norcross High School quickly changed that. He committed to Georgia later that day on G-Day. And it would be kind of funny how people were kind of jumping off the bridge a little bit when things happened right there way back on April the 22nd. And here we are, October the 22nd, not quite October the 19th tomorrow, not quite 6 months later in Georgia. Should they pick up Adam Anderson tomorrow night, they would move to the number 6 team in the country in terms of overall recruiting ratings. And I want you guys, here's one of these truth serum questions I'm going to throw out to you guys out there. Tell me honestly, did you think Georgia was going to rebound like this in the class of 2018? I had my thoughts. I tried to share them a lot on our DawgNation.com forums and message boards, but a lot of people weren't buying it. A lot of people were preaching doom and gloom. And look at Georgia now. They have the chance to really escalate up their recruiting rankings, and their 17th commitment might move them into the top 6 overall for 2018. And things, my friends, are only going to get better after that. Gonna go through a few questions. Stacy Goebel, what about the 2 teammates of Adam that committed with him at LSU? Does either one of them have an offer from UGA? That answer, ma'am, is actually no. One of them is still committed to LSU, and he was kind of the guy that had to get was most saw as a guy that LSU kind of took in the package deal to get Jamarcus Chapman and Adam Anderson. He's actually Mr. Griffin, Jamias Griffin, is still committed to Rome. Out of Rome, is still committed to LSU at this time. Jamarcus Chapman has since flipped. He decommitted from LSU, much like Adam did, and now he is committed to Tennessee. Great question there. Josh Wilburn has a question. 42. He has a thought. He's predicting 42-9 Dogs. No touchdowns for Florida. I guess you're thinking 3 field goals there. Mike Sneed, good question. Any chance of flipping Derek Allen? You're talking about the Lassiter safety, 4-star safety, a U.S. Army All-American. I think Georgia's chances at flipping Derek would hinge on coaching staff upheaval for Notre Dame. And as everybody is seeing the season play out, Notre Dame's coaching staff is not going anywhere. Those guys are doing a great job. Notre Dame's having a great season. Their only loss was the number 3 team in the country by 1 point. I kind of felt when we left South Bend, after that DawgNation invasion there in South Bend, I kind of felt like, to me, it looked like that Notre Dame had a top 10, top 15 team. And right now, this season, they get a big game this week. This season is kind of playing that out. Michael Morrow, my thoughts on Anderson. I'm going to get to that a little bit later in the show, sir. Colt Gotti, he's been telling y'all for months we're getting a top 5 class no matter what. Colt, pretty smart guy there. Logan Duckworth, how are you, man? Stacy Goebel, thank you for that question, by the way. John Thomas Harkins, I think Georgia is in a great spot with Luke Ford. Luke Ford took a visit to Alabama last weekend. It was an unofficial. He's going to give Alabama another official. He's going to give Georgia, as he's told me, an unofficial and an official visit in the time being. He's not going to sign early. He's probably not going to commit early, at least until after the Army All-American game. Perhaps all the way to the old school signing day. And I think Georgia's in a great spot there with Luke Ford. Neil Landon Jackson, man, how are you? Christopher White, you bring up a good point. I'm just going to throw this one out here. Why are analysts talking about how they think Notre Dame is going to end up in the college football playoff and UGA not making it? Christopher White thinks that Georgia will lose to Bama even if it is by 1 point. I tell you what, it'd be very interesting if Georgia could clash twice with Alabama. Maybe they come out with a 1-1 record. I'm sure Dog fans would rather lose the SEC title in order to win the national title with 2 meetings in the postseason with Alabama. Be kind of funny though if those 2 teams meet up undefeated and it is a very tight game. Georgia maybe only loses by a touchdown, or Alabama only loses by a touchdown in a hard-fought struggle. If there are not a lot of other unbeatens, and if there are not a lot of other one-loss teams that have a beautiful loss like either Georgia or Alabama might have in that scenario, I could see that other team sneaking back in there. But it also depends on how good Clemson might look as an ACC champion, or Miami as an ACC champion, how good Ohio State, Penn State, or even Michigan might look as a champion of the Big Ten. It all depends on all those things, what the Pac-12 champion looks like, what the Big 12 champion looks like. All those Power Fives going to have to need a very somewhat of a lightweight foursome for that SEC division champion to sneak in there as well. But I know if I know most of the people on this feed, if Georgia found a way to beat Alabama in the SEC title game, let's say by a field goal, and not a prediction there, just trying to throw something out there, and I would bet that Alabama would get the benefit of the doubt from the voters to get placed back into a not so Titanic Final Four if that happened. Tremel White's got a question about Tyreek Johnson. Tyreek not doing a lot of media right now. I do know that he is planning to take his official visit to Georgia for the Kentucky game. I think that's what he's planning. Yarnell Kohler, hey, thank you so much for being a first-timer. You got a question? I tell you what, it's kind of like Fast Pass at Disney World right here. First-timers kind of go to the front of the line with a question. Derek Lucas, good question about Daniel Faalele. I'm going to put it like this. I think if he had to make his decision tomorrow, it would be Georgia. If you saw the Sentell's Intel blog today, lots of information there about Daniel. First and foremost was the DAP that Kirby Smart gave him at the end of the Missouri game. Also the fact that Georgia flew in all of his family from Melbourne, Australia. Now, guys, consider this. This is about a 23, 24-hour flight right there from Melbourne. Georgia did that for his family. Daniel was really touched by that. It became sort of a mini family reunion. His mom got to see all that. His grandfather got to see all that, and his brother got to see all that. He called it a win-win situation where he got to see a really good school and he got to meet up with his family. I can't remember any other official visit covering that much ground in the history of SEC recruiting, major college recruiting. Of course, Daniel is 6'8.5". He's about 400 pounds. His hands, this part right here, was measured somewhere at around 11.5 inches. He had an 86-inch wingspan from tip to tip, and everybody kind of is curious about Daniel's feet, and maybe he has slow feet at that weight for the SEC. Two things there. Number one, when you got an 86-inch wingspan, that's 7 feet 2 inches. That's Shaquille O'Neal with maybe a big high-top fade going on back in his LSU days. That's a lot of arms where you can just latch onto a guy and keep him away from your quarterback. And also, the young man can dunk a basketball. Daniel also said that Sam Pittman has recruited him strong and consistently since the visit by the IMG Spring Caravan back in March. Pretty big deal there. He says that his best relationship with one of the recruiters that is after him is with Sam Pittman. And also, he's been told and led to believe that Georgia plans to take 2 more guards and 1 more tackle in the class of 2018. If you ask me, the depth at tackle Georgia has gives the Bulldogs a really good shot with Daniel Faalele. Jamie Goodman, how are you, sir? Mark and Christy Gosnell. If you have to ask me, I would think that was going to happen. Martin James, Trey Hill took another great visit to Georgia. I think he really likes the atmosphere at Georgia. I think it's going to come down to Alabama and, to Auburn and Georgia for Trey Hill. One thing that the Hill family does is they really dissect this decision. They look at local communities. They look at player support. They talk to parents. They're really going to do a really good job and have a very invested and informed decision. I do know that Trey Hill somehow has a great time, very big smile on his face every time he's in Athens. He usually comes with members of his family, and there is a lot of things that are building up for Georgia that would be an enviable situation for Trey Hill. He could also play some center. He could also play a lot of guard, the nation's number 2 guard. And again, the thing with that family and Trey Hill specifically, going to compete his fanny parts off, but he's not looking to play right away. I think the big year for Trey Hill and his family is 2020 and 2021. How will the school of his choice develop his body and his game to put him into position to be a big-time prospect for the NFL draft in 2020 or 2021? Trent Langley, you're absolutely right, brother. I think Rome is a tremendous program. I love John Reed. the coaches they have there. Their offensive line coach is a funny guy. I really think that Rome's offensive line is so good this year that you could maybe, for the purposes of this discussion, you could suspend all that offensive line, the starting offensive line for Rome. You put its second teamers in there, and I still think Rome would be a region champion with their backups on the offensive line. And those are the guys that Adam Anderson just tears up every day in practice. John Thomas Harkins, very good job. K.O. Westbrook, when I was talking about that big guy and everything else, I was talking about Daniel Faalele. Melbourne, Australia, from down under. Didn't even know what a first down was way back on August 25th, 2016. Dylan Brooks brings up a good point. Adam Anderson makes his decision tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and then Justin Fields will play Dalton High on ESPN2. Tremel Wright, the Dogs are in there with Tyson Campbell, no doubt about that. Lots of questions. Hey, guys, I really appreciate the shares. I really appreciate the likes. We're trying to be the best thing going on Wednesday nights when it comes to recruiting and all things Georgia football. Consider all those comment fields there, man, a suggestion box, whatever I can do to make this show better, whatever I can do to make this more entertainment for you guys. I know you got Netflix out there. I know you got lots of other things out there. I'm working here for you guys tonight, so please let me know what we can do with this show. All right, guys, where we're at now is this is the part of our $50. How about them groceries? Trivia question from everybody at Kroger. Simple rules here. What we look for now is when I ask for a player, I want the first and last name. I also, sometimes I ask for the player and a year, so I would want first and last name and year. First person that gets the correct answer right with the red dot on the live broadcast, I will find you through Facebook Messenger, and we will get you a $50 gift card from Kroger. Maybe you can use that new click list and pay for your groceries that way with your $50 gift card from Kroger. That'd be a great way to do it. This week's question is going to touch on a little bit about that Georgia-Florida rivalry. Now remember, guys, if you've won $50 from the How About Them groceries within the last 60 months, 60 days. Let me get that right, guys. Lots of things going through my head right now. The last 60 days, we ask you to tap out and take a knee on this trivia challenge and let some other good dog people get themselves all those $50 of good groceries from Kroger. And with that, I think I've said all of the fine print necessary on our contract, on our contest. The question today is themed around the Georgia-Florida game. You're going to get one kind of like this next week as well. I want the first and last name here. This is what I'm looking for here. One Georgia football player who was actually a recruit in 2017 in that Sikkim 17 class actually has the nickname Gator. And you guys are going to be rooting for a kid named Gator, a young man named Gator, for the next 3 or 4 years down there in Jacksonville. Give me the name, first and last name of that player on the Georgia roster right now who carries the nickname Gator. You get it right, I'm going to get you $50 to spend on groceries at Kroger. There you go. That's your trivia question for tonight. Going to catch some questions. Wayne Carroll, will Roquan play another year? Wayne, I don't think he will. I think he's a first-round pick. Thomas Davis even said so earlier this week. Just an incredible combination of right here, right here, right here, and some dadgum good wheels. I watched him live. I know it's my job to cover these guys, but I kind of, at the game against Missouri last week, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to watch Roquan Smith work for about 6-7 plays in a row. And the way the young man diagnoses things, the way he sniffs out plays, where he follows the guards, he finds the football, all that's great. Lots of players can do that. The combination of the way Roquan Smith runs sideline to sideline, I called him Sonic the Hedgehog the other night on my Twitter feed. And when he arrives with such bad intentions, the combination of all that makes him a very special player. And if you look at some of the draft picks recently, Deion Jones, Atlanta Falcon out of LSU is a great example. I think Roquan Smith's the number one pick, and that would be very hard to turn down. Maybe he comes back if there's unfinished business left on the Georgia table. Maybe he doesn't. But I tell you what, if Roquan Smith came back, maybe even made a decision with his heart and not with his head there, awful hard to turn down those NFL millions. But if he did, he would definitely endear himself as one of the great Bulldogs of all time, no doubt about that. Matthew Spikes, Trezman Marshall took another visit to Georgia last weekend. You want to know about him? Clinch County High School, inside linebacker, outside linebacker for the class of 2019. He likes Georgia a lot. He had to adjust to kind of a new Georgia with his good friend Chauncey Minnock not there. He would be committed to Georgia right now if Chauncey was still at Georgia. He's told me that before. I think he's in a good spot with Georgia, and if I had to put together a mock class for 2019, I would see Trezman Marshall in there. James Crump, yeah, that's a pretty good offensive line right now. Hey, quickly, guys, let's act like this is the Kroger click list. And if you could click on 4 names, give me 4, not 5. Give me 4 names like this is the Kroger click list for you guys, for you to add to Georgia's recruiting class right now. The 4 biggest names, the 4 most wanted guys that you would see out there. Let me know about that. Show off that what you can do. Give me your 4 ideal recruits. I'm going to play along with that right now. I think the best 4 recruits Georgia can land left in the class of 2018 would go Jamari Sawyer 1, Tyson Campbell 2, Otis Reese 3, and then number 4 would be really shopping out of greed right there with that 4th name right there. You could go Trey Hill, you could go James Cook, you could go Channing Tindall, you could go Trevor Trout, you could go Robert Cooper. I'm going to go, in a bit of an upset, I'm going to go Robert Cooper as the 4th guy. If you look at that, Georgia gets the best interior offensive line prospect in the last 20 years in Jamari Sawyer. Then they would get their lockdown size, 6'2.5" cornerback in Tyson Campbell. He's a 5-star from American Heritage High School, the nation's number 3 cornerback for 2018. Then you go and you get another player by the name of, when you add the 4th guy right there, you add a guy like Adam Anderson was a guy I also named there, as well as a guy Georgia has to have there in the class of 2018 to keep adding a big pass rusher. And then the 4th guy added right there was Robert Cooper, the big defensive tackle out of South Gwinnett High School. That comment was also there on Saturday night, watching Georgia a lot. He told me he liked it a lot, thought the defense was stout, and thought the offense was explosive. Azell Dodd, will y'all be doing any of those cool commitment videos like y'all did last year? Mr. Dodd, most definitely. Johnny Kimbrough, man, respect your game a lot. Pulling for Georgia since 1963. Longtime fan. He's been waiting for this year for some time now. Praying for SEC champs. We can do it. Stuart Austin has a question about why do I think Adam Anderson decommitted initially? Good question. Adam Anderson, history there, we're going to have to revisit that. What happened there is he wanted to play with his boys at LSU, his boys in the next level. He wanted to get an offer for a very deserving defensive lineman and Mr. Griffin on the Rome defensive line and Jamarcus Chapman as well. Those 3 got an offer for Mr. Griffin from LSU. And Ed Orgeron pitched all 3 of them together on the defensive line at LSU, and they bought in, and they committed. But after a while, it seemed to me that LSU was just a little too far away for Adam Anderson. Hope you guys read some of the stories we've written about Adam Anderson. One of my favorites for Adam Anderson is he lost a dear sister, and he plays in honor of her memory every time. And she kind of passed due to a mysterious, unknown ailment. Nobody was really sure what happened to her. She cut his hair. She liked his hair a certain way, and Adam wore his hair a certain way for quite some time. His younger brother is also hearing impaired, and Adam probably needs to stay close to him as well. He's probably the only 4-star, near 5-star prospect out there that has a 150, 250 word sign language vocabulary. And if you guys know sign language for G, I think that's it. More power to you guys as well. Bob Wright, question about Luke Ford. What's my prediction on Luke Ford? I do think Luke Ford ends up at Georgia, sir. Greg Guess, unless things change, any word on the James Cook commitment date? He's planning, as of now, to commit on December the 20th. That's the first day of the early signing period. Again, we're talking about a public commitment there. Steve Jeffcoat, there's no announcement ceremony. There's going to be a video that drops at some time. I'm hearing that it will be sometime on Thursday evening, Thursday early afternoon. Tim Strickland wants to know, why do all the Lee County players go to Michigan? I'll tell you what, that trend might be changing. Otis Reese continues to have quite a fascination and an affection for the University of Georgia. Jamie Powell, question about KJ Henry. I think Georgia's in a really good spot there with KJ Henry. I can see KJ Henry in the class of 2018 as well. Neil Landon Jackson, my points exactly. Everybody talks about Daniel Faalele's feet. With a wingspan that wide, you don't have to move your feet too much. And again, some more intel on Daniel is he goes against 4-star and 5-star offensive linemen every day in practice at IMG Academy. Nolan Smith, who is an authority on getting by dudes, told me those feet are good enough and he's just fine to play right tackle in the SEC. Dylan Flood, if you want to know how to follow my blog through Facebook, you need to follow DawgNation's Facebook page. You can even follow me on Facebook. My Facebook account is Jeff Sentell, first and last name, self-explanatory. All my stories, all my tweets post on there. I tweet out all my stories. That's a good way to follow that. Dustin McDaniel, I think that's the first time I've ever heard somebody say, "Hey, Brittany, my hot wife just joined." Hey, thumbs up to all you guys out there that have hot wives, that not only have hot wives, but also watch a UGA football recruiting show. Blake Smith has a question about Ben Cleveland. Guys, I'm going to bow up on Ben Cleveland here a little bit. Everybody, it's kind of fanned by the flames of this recruiting stuff. Ben Cleveland somehow gets labeled a bust, maybe because he doesn't start right away at the University of Georgia. Ludicrous right there, I say. I think Ben Cleveland, next year, I have him and Isaiah Wilson getting reps and vying for that right tackle spot. I think Ben Cleveland's made a lot of improvement in his second year at the University of Georgia. You got to remember now, he was a young 17 years old when he arrived on campus at Georgia as well. And young for his grade, you're not talking about a hole back here whatsoever. He's probably about 6'5", 6'6", and about 320, 330. I think Ben Cleveland's going to play a lot of good football for the University of Georgia. Tom Boyd, I have a picture of you and Faalele. I still do. You were the really tall one on the sideline. I got you, man. No doubt about that. It's funny, though, guys. Now, this is just the dogs. And the dogs, and allow me to deviate for a second. I got so many emails, text messages, even mentioned on the DawgNation forum. Sometimes when I post pictures of Georgia recruits on unofficial and official visit, a lot of people notice those Georgia girls escorting them more so than the size and stature of those prospects. I just thought that was really funny. There's a funny little diatribe on the DawgNation message board about that. And I tell you what, you know you're happily married and you know you're you probably like your job a little too much when someone points out to you, is like, did you mean to put that blonde in that picture with the recruit right there? And I'm like, oh man, I just thought it was a good picture. Thanks to everybody for joining in, and we're about at the midway point of our show. I'm going to do a couple things. Asked the trivia question earlier, and I've seen a winner, so let's go ahead and let you guys know who won the trivia question. How about them groceries for tonight, October the 18th? That winner, the question again was, as I said, kind of a spicing that flavor up for a little bit for that Georgia-Florida rivalry, that big game next weekend down in Jacksonville. I wanted you to know there is a player on Georgia's roster right now, and I kind of helped you out by saying he's a member of the Sikkim 17 recruiting class that carries the nickname Gator, and I wanted to know who that was. So the first person that gives me Mark Webb I'm going to accept, but if anybody gave me Mark Webb Jr. and they were actually the first one, we might try to give you a special DawgNation salute tonight, because the answer right there was Mark Webb Jr. From Pennsylvania, Warminster, Pennsylvania, from Archbishop Wood High School. He's a 4-star wide receiver, currently playing cornerback for Georgia because that's where Georgia needs him. Excuse me. Nicknamed Gator, been Gator all his life. I think that was pretty funny, especially with the Georgia-Florida rivalry coming up. Also, great family, great people that up there in Pennsylvania. Got to meet the Webbs. They offered me a cupcake on the day he committed. Also, first cousin was DeAndre Swift. Very great family. And Georgia's doing pretty well there in Pennsylvania and wants to do a little bit more better in Pennsylvania in the class of 2018. They're hawking and looking after a 2018 defensive tackle prospect as well by the name of Christian Barmore. All right, if you joined our last few shows, we try to do a little bit more than just Jeff answering questions and Jeff speechifying. You know, we've got the how about them groceries trivia question. We also debuted a new game here, and you don't win anything out of this game, but it's a quick, rapid fire, I think, way for quick strike, quick hit way to share some information there about UGA football recruiting. UGA, just UGA stuff, so you'd be a more informed fan, and that's what we're all about here, being information pipelines for you guys about Georgia football. And my gig here is Georgia football recruiting with a little bit of team stuff on the side. First off, six-pack. Going to like this question. What language did DeAndre Swift take? We just mentioned him a minute ago. What language did DeAndre Swift take for 2 years in high school? Pretty impressive one. I, myself, have never been around a big-time recruit that took this language for 2 years in high school. DeAndre went to a fabulous high school in the heart of Pennsylvania, St. Joseph's Prep. That's where mayor's kids go. Very demanding curriculum. Can enroll early. What I'm looking for there is what language did DeAndre Swift, guy that you guys might know is that exclamation point running back for Georgia in the class of 2017. Getting a lot of big-time carries, and we try not to let the questions dwell out a little bit. I just want to have a few comments come in. I see Charles Kaiser got it right. DeAndre Swift, that exclamation point big play back for Georgia, number 7 era, took Latin for 2 years in high school. Can you imagine that, Latin? I asked him if he could do anything now in Latin last year when I was up there in Philadelphia with him, and he said negative. Question number 2, which Georgia prospect, and he's a commitment, had an opponent try to confiscate his shoe the other night and keep him from making big plays? Pretty funny story. The video's online. I want you guys to make sure you check it out. I retweeted it off my feed, but I want to know which prospect had an opponent try to confiscate his shoe and throw it over to the other sideline to get him out of the game on Friday night. Nick Thomason, you're right there with it, sir. Nolan Warnock, you're right there with it, sir, as well. That would be Zeus Zamir White. 2 or 3 cool things about Zamir. It's about 6'1.5", about 225. Zamir, at his practice field, I can verify the following stories. When the guys hit their water break and they take a knee and they take chill for a little bit during a sweaty practice, Here's what Zeus does. Zeus goes to the center of the practice field, usually takes a knee. The young man does not require water, doesn't usually take water, doesn't think he needs water, thinks it makes him tougher. And sometimes the trainers will even come out there and say, come on, Zeus, this is not just because the reporter's here. How about some water? Usually we'll decline or take a little sip as well. His teammates, I don't know if that was an urban legend, but it was confirmed by a member of the coaching staff. Zamir also hardly sweats. Pretty interesting to believe there at all. I don't know if he's an X-Man or he's got something up with his endocrine system. Zamir barely sweats. Also likes to ride horses in his spare time. Number 3, picking up the pace here. What is Georgia's current recruiting ranking? Current ranking in recruiting. Georgia is currently, they've been climbing. I remember it wasn't even maybe 2 or 3 months ago when Georgia was like 59th or something like that. And then in a kind of a 3 or 4 week span, they clicked off Elijah Moore, Kieris Jackson, Azeez Ojulari, and you kept seeing this is what was happening. Georgia keeps moving their guy all the way up. Georgia picks up a commitment that either goes to the number 1 or number 2 or 3 slot of their recruiting board. And I tell you what, made this point a few days ago, maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Georgia fans might have to get used to looking at those commitment rankings right now and the guys on the list for 2018 and sit there and go, maybe 2 or maybe only 3 of the top 10 names that will eventually be on that list are currently right there. Things can change the way things go in recruiting, but if you look at Georgia's list right now, my take on that is when all is said and done, they probably only have 3 or 4 of their top 13, 14 commitments right now. Pretty interesting to believe. Back to our 6-pack question. Number 3, Georgia's current recruiting ranking. They're currently number 12. If Georgia was to get Adam Anderson on Thursday, that's tomorrow night, their ranking would go up to number 6 overall. Number 6 overall. So Georgia would jump from 12 to 6 if they could add the nation's number 2 outside linebacker out of Rome High School. Another question involving pass rushers a little bit. Since Adam Anderson is on everybody's mind right now, I want to think about the pass rush that Georgia would have with guys like Azeez Ojulari and Adam Anderson in the fold. What was the last time Georgia had a player lead the team with double digits in sacks? I want to know the last time, or I want to know the name of the player. Really educational question there, if you ask me. You have to go back a few years to find the last time Georgia had a player to lead the team in sacks with double-digit sacks. Interesting about that. I see it coming up. Nick Thomason and Petey Wheatstraw, you guys are on it. I want you to tell me this, though. Tell me the name of the player. Can you give me the guy's name of the player? You're really going to show off your trivia muscle here right now. And you're going to be chopping wood here on 6-pack. No doubt about that. Christopher White fills in the gap right there. Christopher Wright, Jake Worley, you guys were on it. 2012 was the last time Georgia had a player lead the team in sacks with double-digit sacks. That was Jarvis Jones on his year before he made it to the league. Got picked by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I actually saw him. A lot of Bulldogs were on the sidelines last Saturday at Georgia. Number 5, I'm going to get through this one quickly. How many out-of-state commits does Georgia have right now? Georgia currently has 16 commits. How many out-of-state commitments does Georgia have right now? Start thinking about them a little bit. Out-of-state commitments, they've got 16 commitments overall right now. 10 of those boys are actually Georgia boys. If you answered 6, Georgia currently has 6 out-of-state commitments for 2018. Last question, last one of our 6-pack. Try to make these 6-packs go down well and also go down fast. Which position has Georgia sent out the fewest offers of any other regular spot on the field? Offense, defense, not talking special teams. Which position has Georgia sent out the fewest offers of any position, offense or defense here, in 2018? This is a question where you can kind of read between the lines a little bit. I say follow the visits a lot, follow the follows, see who follows the head coach, see if the head coach follows them, see if the coordinators follow a guy for their respective side of the ball. You also want to see follow the offers, which kind of tells Georgia might have something cooking there with a few select guys. Eric Fountain, actually, center is a question that would probably qualify. Georgia only has 2 guys that they've offered at center. But the correct answer I'm looking for there is offensive guard. Georgia has only offered, according to that great database maintained by 24/7 Sports. I give a tip of the cap for everything they do with their databases and everything else like that. Those are splendid for a guy like me. Georgia's only offered 8 offensive guards in 2018. Only 8. And obviously they're 2 big targets. Nation's number 1 guard, Jamari Sawyer. Nation's number 2 guard, Trey Hill. All right, we've done all of the things that we are assigned to do today. All of our assigned homework during the DawgNation Wednesday Night Live taken care of. We've given away a $50 gift card. We've 6-packed you guys. We've asked you guys to share it, like it one more time. You guys could do that. That's the way my bosses look at the work I do and say, you know what? That DawgNation Wednesday Night Live might have some legs. We might need to keep throwing Jeff out there. Nate Thomas brings another important prediction there as well. And Tim Strickland, you're right, man. I tried to say only one of the earlier phrasings of the question, I tried to say that I'm looking for a regular position, offensive and defensive and everything else like that. Derek Lucas definitely think Blankenship Hot Rod specs has improved since that scholarship. No doubt about it. John William Adams, man, that was really tough, man. I hated to hear that about Kyle Davis. He made his choice. It wasn't to Georgia, and things just didn't work out for it. Nick Thomason wants to know who will gain a 5th star. I think that Adam Anderson kid. I think that Adam Anderson kid will end up with his 5th star eventually. I don't know if Trey Hill will end up with his 5th star. But I think those are kind of the most likely 5 stars on Georgia's board that will come up with that as well. Chris Haggard. And do I think Georgia goes to the national championship this year? Ron Thomas, that's your question? I don't think so. I just think you want me to be real, you want me to be honest, that's what I always try to do. I think Georgia's going to get in a mess when they play Alabama in the Dome. I think Alabama is in year 7 of what Georgia's trying to build, and I don't think Georgia will be able to compete fully with the depth at Alabama until they get another strong recruiting class like this year's in the fold. And then I think with what they're doing in 2019, I think Georgia will be able to be eye to eye with Alabama, and I don't say that lightly. I just think Georgia's going to stack up that level of players in 2018, 2017, 2018, and 2019. The biggest matchup worry I would see for Georgia in that SEC championship game, everybody's already forecasting right there, is, man, Alabama's got some sick receivers, guys. You don't know this. I cover recruiting all the time. Sure, they get coached up once they get on campus, but they only get about 20 hours a week. Alabama's got about 4 or 5 receivers right now that would probably start and catch a lot of balls for Georgia. Going to be really hard for them to keep up with. Clarence L. Lee Jr. Yeah, you're totally right, man. Texas A&M played them tough, but that's a game everybody's going to geek up for as well. And I even think it'll be a close game. I think Kirby will know exactly the strengths and weaknesses of that defense. He's going to know the way to attack him. He's going to have a very strong win manager at quarterback in Jake Fromm. I think it's going to be a great game. Petey Wheatstraw. You asked me for my question. William Hasty, of course Georgia could beat Alabama. Any given Sunday, anybody can be beat. Ole Miss has beaten Alabama a couple of times over the last 5 years with not the same type of talent, not the same type of defense as Georgia has. Always possible. You ask me what I think even the most red and black goggles on, the biggest Georgia fan on this board, would not see Georgia beating Alabama a majority of times if they played 10 times. Stan Scarborough. They're going to compete with Alabama. They're going to play with Alabama. You got to remember, though, Alabama has stacked up so much depth. Of course, they've lost a lot of talent at linebacker because guys have been injured, no doubt about that. And I do think Georgia has the defense to kind of defuse Jalen Hurts. Just a really tough matchup with Georgia's corners, deep balls especially, matching up with all those receivers at Alabama. Calvin Ridley, Devontae Smith, Henry Ruggs, Jerry Jeudy. That's a lot of guys. A lot of guys that Georgia wanted and they couldn't get. No doubt about that. Hey, guys, I would say this right there. It's great that Georgia's even having this conversation right now about whether or not they could play with Bama. No doubt about that. All right, guys. About it for me. Another great DawgNation Wednesday Night Live Facebook. Going to hang out for about 10 minutes more, 5-10 minutes more, if that's okay with you guys. Want to wrap up a few things. Questions. Scotty Kirkpatrick, prediction on the Florida game. I do see Georgia winning, and I see Georgia winning that game handily in a statement game. Josh Purvis, will Georgia fill up the recruiting spots for this year? You are most certainly right. One thing Kirby Smart's going to do is he is going to make sure that he gets his full quota of scholarships every year. He treats that 85-man roster like it's gold. He works the last 20 names on that, 10 names on that roster like it's gold, because that's where your depth comes from. That's where your good looks come from on your scout team. Georgia currently has all scholarship guys on the offensive line on the scout team doing a really good job with a young man by the name of Stetson Bennett IV. Really just having some bona fide good success against Georgia's first-team defense. I would not be surprised at all if that young man has not earned a scholarship down the road for the University of Georgia. Jason Lee, I do think Georgia will have a top 5, top 3, top 2, top 2, top 3 class. That's my range right now. Top 2, top 3 in 2018. Jamie Goodman. I think that the class will probably be rated number 6 or probably by Friday, probably by Thursday night. And if you've been paying attention to the whole broadcast, maybe, just maybe, you got my prediction there for Adam Anderson as well. William Hasty, thank you, sir. Stan Scarborough, man, I'm going to put the fan filters off, and I know I've a lot of great dog fans on the feed. You just got to look at the groceries that Nick Saban has to cook with right now. I think Fromm would win the quarterback battle. I think Chad made a good point in the feed earlier today. I think Jake Fromm's doing exactly what I thought he would do at Georgia. Very efficient, very smart quarterback, making some big-time throws. I know a lot of people that were worried about Fromm's arm. If you look at that throw he made against Javon Wims, not a lot of people have a lot to say about him not having the arm. Jake Fromm's arm is only going to get stronger as well, and he has off the charts everything else when it comes to playing quarterback. Robert Hunt, DawgNation does not give me a makeup artist. I do not have I probably have a shiny forehead because we have really cool lights on. I'm in the studio right now, guys, if you didn't notice. I'm in the SEC Country DawgNation Daily Studio right now. Maybe that's why I'm having such a good show right now and everybody's hanging out. It's because I got some of this Brandon Adams juju, Brandon Adams mojo all over this broadcast right now. Armand Rashad, talking about Jalen Tank McCullough, Musket, big-time safety for 2019. He would sure look good in that 2019 class for Georgia that I think is probably going to wind up the #1 class in Georgia when all is said and done. Excuse me, the #1 class in the nation when all is said and done. Chad Robinson, I want to clarify that point I made. Basically what I'm saying there is when you look at Georgia's current recruiting class right now, only about 3 or 4 of those names will eventually be in the top 10 when you look at Georgia's 10 highest rated recruits for 2018. What I mean there is there are going to be some big time talents that slide in up above a lot of those names, which knock those names out of the top 10, knock those names down from maybe a #7 slot to a #14 slot. That sort of thing. Hope I cleared that up for you, Chad. All right, guys, a couple more things I want to throw out. Again, thanks to those fine folks at Kroger. Try out that quick click list if you can. Very quickly, you can get your groceries done. I was at a Kroger this week, and here's what they do. You go online, Kroger.com, you put your stuff in, you make your orders, you then pull up to your friendly neighborhood Kroger, and there's a spot reserved. Like some of them have like 6 or 7 spots reserved. You pull in, they bring your groceries out to you. That click list is quick, like McCole Hardman quick, guys. Good thing for them at Kroger. Just wanted to share those words about Kroger, especially because they sponsor our broadcast every week. The $50 How About Them Groceries gift card, trivia card challenge. Anybody on the feed right now, tell me, A, you got that gift card, do you enjoy it? Just let people know that these are not mystery gift cards floating around. We hook you guys up and you guys get your food. You guys get to go Krogering to your heart's content and everything else like that. A couple more things I got to mention. First thing I got to mention is we're having another DawgNation event at Marlowe's Tavern. That will take place on Tuesday. That will be our DawgNation Invasion event heading before we head down to Jacksonville. And then down there in Jacksonville, Coast City, I believe that's what it's called still, on the banks of the St. Johns River where all those RVs and all those dog people will be at from like Tuesday, Wednesday on. Probably for the most hyped Georgia-Florida game in history, especially since if you go all the way back to 2005, that was the last time Georgia was unbeaten heading into that game, and Georgia had to play that game without their starting quarterback in DJ Shockley. Things did not go the Bulldogs' way that game, but they would be bringing 2 healthy quarterbacks at least into Jacksonville for this year's clash with those 3-3 Florida Gators. We will also have a DawgNation Invasion tailgate right around Gate 6 down there from 10:30 a.m., I believe, until kickoff. Going to have a Dixie Vodka tasting station for all you responsible adults out there. Going to have 4 or 5 TVs, I think, a tailgate trailer, Kroger scratch-offs, prizes, T-shirts. Come at me, guys. Come at me. Visit us down there for the DawgNation Invasion tailgate down in Jacksonville. We'll talk about things. We'll sit there. We'll hang out. Maybe we'll talk and laugh a little bit before Georgia takes on those Florida Gators. Everything else. All right, guys. Been another great Wednesday Night Live. One last thing. Thank you for continuing to watch each and every week and making this DawgNation Wednesday Night Live a pretty big thing. Glad to be a part of it. Glad you guys continue to be a part of it. And we'll see you guys later. Big day tomorrow for all those Bulldog fans. We'll see everybody later on DawgNation.com.